joining us again for another episode with Pursuit of Purpose and What Are We Doing? The topic of discussion is
Fatherhood.
yes, being a dad. And today we're gonna talk about fatherhood from the angle of sacrifice. And there's a lot to unpack there. Just the word sacrifice has so much meaning. It can go in so many different directions.
Right.
But what does it mean when it relates to fatherhood? How do we, as young men,
Mhm.
how do we look at fatherhood in correlation to the word sacrifice? Can you remember back before you became a father, before you might have even become a husband,
Mhm.
and you thought about being a dad? I know I did.
Yeah.
What did it mean to you?
Well, I mean, probably at that stage, it was kind of more of a, this sounds kind of silly, friends, but probably be more like a playmate, like,
Ah.
yeah, well, here's this kid going to come around and boy, that could be a lot of fun and all that. I certainly didn't think about a lot of the responsibilities. Later, as it got closer, that was all I could think about is, man, how am I going to afford this and all this kind of stuff. But at the time, I would see other people, maybe at church or wherever, with their children, boys or girls, and I'd be like, that looks cool. And they're teaching them and messing with them and playing things with them. And I thought, man, I'd love to do that one day. That'd be neat. And as you get closer to that age and stage, you probably fine tune that a little bit more. But yeah, it was. I hate to say playmate, but that's about the only thing I can come up with.
So you didn't really view it as something scary. You didn't see it as though it would be an obligation that you would have to give up your own identity in order to enter into this endeavor of fatherhood.
Right. I hadn't entertained that yet. Not
Okay.
at all. About the things that, because our topic today is being sacrificed, hadn't even thought about that. I was thinking about more just, all the fun and the cool things I get to see. Now, that's the thing about fatherhood I didn't know yet, were probably the work that goes into those moments.
Right.
Hadn't got to that part yet.
So was there a time in your life where that happened to you, where you had this like revelation that, this thing is much bigger than I expected, and having these little humans depend on me, it's going to require some sacrifice of me. Was there a
Yeah.
time in your life where that happened?
I think so. I think it's definitely when she was expecting, and I could see that. Oh, this is real.
It's getting real.
Yeah, and I married someone who had two sons, but they were a little older. They'd already gone through a lot. They were 8 and 11, so there was some development was already there. So we could dialogue, we could talk. I could give instructions they could follow, and it was kind of easy. I mean, outside of them just being little stinker boys, sometimes it really wasn't that difficult. But when the baby was coming, I'm like, oh, that's a whole new game, because I could look around and see babies, and I think that's a lot of work, and just all that just gets those wheels turning. How about you?
Well, I had an interesting perspective of this. My biological father wasn't in the picture
Mhm.
when I was a child.
Mhm.
And so I had this overarching theme of, not to go too much into my personal feelings and getting all emotional and stuff, but I grew up with this feeling that I was never good enough. And that somehow that parlayed into thinking about being a father. And would I be able to live my life as a man, retain my identity,
Mhm.
and care for them as I needed to, and show them that they were good enough?
Yeah.
And how much of myself would I have to sacrifice to give them what they needed?
Right.
And I often wonder, and any of you out there, if you're with us today and you have any input on this, we'd love to hear it.
Yes.
But I often wonder about the American home and homes worldwide, the family home worldwide. We talk about the epidemic of fatherlessness in the home.
Yes.
And I often wonder if that plays into it. A lot of young dads, when they become dads for the first time,
Mhm.
this huge reality comes in that I no longer live for just myself.
Right.
And they get scared.
Yes.
And they have this feeling that I have to give up my identity if I'm going to stay in this and be a dad.
Right.
So they run from it. A lot of times I believe that they run from that fear.
Sure. That is a conclusion I perfectly agree with. They're just running from the fear of first giving up all of the fun things that they think makes up their identity. And then maybe there's a little bit of a, you probably would, if you get them individually, if you get them one-on-one, there probably is a little bit of that intimidated component.
Yeah.
They're afraid. They're afraid of failing. And maybe they came from a failing situation. So they're afraid of just replicating failure. So they just don't try.
So they have this preconceived notion that they have to give up themselves to be a dad.
Right.
And my biological father actually, chose that fearful route, that he wasn't a part of my life.
Right.
But then I had this other phenomenon that took place in my life, which is quite the opposite of that. I got the privilege of having a stepdad.
Yes.
I didn't call him stepdad.
No.
I called him dad.
Yes.
And he entered my life, and he was my dad. He chose to give me his last name.
Yes.
He chose to raise me with structure, discipline, and respect, and taught me ethics, work ethics, and others. He taught me the commitment of being a part of something bigger than yourself, not just a family, but a church. He taught me the value of work, that a man provides for his family, whatever sacrifice he must make, that's his duty.
Right.
He taught me all those things. So he chose that sacrifice, but he did it with such honor that I believe it was not a sacrifice for him, that it was out of the love of life and out of his just convictions as a man.
Right.
He did it.
Right.
And it was amazing. And
it made a lasting impact.
Oh,
you pass that on to a home full of children.
Absolutely.
And like I say, some of that came straight from you, and then there's others that you brought in.
Yes.
And through various means, and which is obviously that, whether he intended for that legacy impression or not, that's definitely what happened.
Well, he, like you said, legacy, he created something that has recreated.
Yes.
Through me, and now through my kids.
Yes.
And I want to encourage any of you out there, if you're a young man who is not yet looking at the prospect of being a dad, if you're already a dad, and maybe you're not in your kid's life, or the other aspect of that is, what if you're possibly a step parent? I'm going to encourage you that being a dad is not a sacrifice at all.
Yeah.
It is a 100% opportunity to create purpose and legacy through you into those kids in ways that you could never imagine. Permanent legacy.
Yes.
That just goes on and on and on. And
if you're a young man and you're listening, one thing that just almost kind of fell into my lap, I didn't really anticipate it, is I found myself working with youth. I was a youth minister for a while. I would volunteer coach. I might work with somebody, but there was always at least a good, better than 10-year span between me and the children I'm working with, sometimes even younger than that. If I would help with, say, maybe Vacation Bible School at church or whatever, there was all these little moments of time, and they not all were lasting, but they were pretty good training grounds, because you're gonna have to. And when we say sacrifice, I mean, most of us are thinking some type of resource like revenue or whatever, but sacrificing my time, sacrificing those moments where it's not about me, it's about what that young person gets out of it. And so how I talk to them and how I relate and how I cause them to take, curiosity to some conclusion. And if it may only be a little afternoon project, but it was an excellent training ground. And I didn't even realize it at the time. I was just kind of doing what the other adults were doing. But over time, it started to make sense. Then by the time I did become a dad, I think some of that stuff was already there. So me and my stepsons, my sons, we could go outside and do stuff. It was nothing to spend 2 hours in the yard playing sports or something, because I'd already kind of done things like that. It wasn't like I was standing there brand new. And so I encourage you, volunteer, just get started. Let that training ground kind of build itself.
Well, something fascinating about it, and where the topic of sacrifice, a lot of guys, I've heard comments, especially in young men, I don't want to give up my time. I don't want to give up who I am or who I'm going to be to deal with a kid. You know, they'll get a girl pregnant, and that common phrase, I hate this phrase. There's this phrase out there that says, you've ruined your life
Oh,
if you've procreated at a certain age, or if you've done it beyond the bonds of marriage. Let me tell you something. There's no accidental creation of life.
right.
Every life has value and purpose.
Yes.
I don't care what anybody says. That is fact.
Right.
So if a life is created, you may not have planned it, but that life has a purpose.
Yes.
So while you may not see it now, I would challenge you that no amount of time that you'll spend in rearing that life and helping that child become an adult
Mhm.
would ever be a sacrifice.
Right.
Because what I would challenge you is, how could you have spent it any better?
Right.
And what better or greater or more valuable legacy could you create
Mhm.
than to build a new life?
Right.
And I would also challenge that if you choose not to be a part of that legacy, you will have nothing but regret about that
Indeed.
choice.
Indeed.
And I've never met anyone that could contradict that.
Right.
I've met a lot of people in our practice and throughout life
Mhm.
that have chosen the different route, that have chosen to not be a part of their kids' lives. And the overarching premise of their life is the regret that they have
Right.
around that choice.
Right.
So there is no greater purpose than that of raising children.
Yes.
That there's no greater purpose.
Right.
There's no greater purpose than mentoring another person.
Yes.
And that is the ultimate in mentoring relationships, is the parental child relationship.
Right.
And as a man who has been a father and now a grandfather, uh, that's one of my proudest things,
Mhm.
is that legacy.
Yes. There's a passage, and if I may, friends, I'll throw it out there. It's Romans 12:1. It says, because of God's mercies, remember, mercy is when we don't get what we do deserve. Grace is when you get something you didn't deserve. Like if I brought you a box of donuts and I gave them to Rob, and Rob's like, thanks, what I owe you. I go, nothing, it's free, eat them. That's grace. But mercy is when I don't get it. He said, because of that, present yourself as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, because that is your spiritual act of worship. So if I could figure out these ways to see this as like I'm making an offering toward a greater good, or I'm making an offering toward that legacy or toward that destiny to be fulfilled in that child. I didn't put it there. What I'm doing is I'm contributing to its progress.
Right.
If I can see that, then it doesn't cost me anything. And there's still going to be time for you to work and build yourself. There's still going to be time for you to have your little moments of recreation with your friends. But then there's those, why do we do those things? So I can bring that energy back to this young person, boy or girl. It doesn't have to be a father to son thing, and to pour into them. That is where the sacrifice comes from. It comes from built resources. So this idea that all of my life is completely over and every bit of my life is about that child, that's ridiculous. That's not how it plays out, or nor should it. I have to give them something.
Right.
And so that my child sees me go out and produce and then bring the fruit of that production. And then the child wants to replicate it. And then they'll do it in whatever their interests are, whether it's industry, music, whatever it is that they do. And hopefully one day they'll be parents as well.
So I'll tell you guys a story. I've never shared this little story on the air before of any kind. But when our oldest son was young, I went duck hunting a lot. I was kind of addicted to duck hunting, if you will. And
there could be worse things.
right. But I went a lot.
Okay.
Like every time I got a chance, if I could be, I would be duck hunting. And when he was little, once he learned about what I was doing and why I was leaving, super early in the morning and getting back tired and, all this stuff, he wanted to go too. And honestly, at that moment when he was super young, I dreaded it because I feared the work that it was going to be, the sacrifice it was going to be about my duck hunting trip. I thought that man, if I bring him, I don't want to tell him no, but I also don't want to bring him because if I bring him, it's not going to be really a duck hunting trip. It's going to be a babysitting trip.
Right. Right.
So I gave myself a goal that when he reached a certain age, at that age, I would take him,
Okay.
regardless of the sacrifice that it would take for this to occur. So when he hit that age, I did it. I took him. And on that trip, he was so excited. I mean, he was a little bitty guy, man, little bitty guy. And I got him his first pair of waders. They weren't really waders. They were hip boots because he was so little. I couldn't find waders that actually fit him. He was up and he was energetic at 2:00 in the morning. It was cold, but he didn't care. He was shivering. We got in the boat and we headed out to the duck spot at Texas Point, which is a really muddy, marshy, difficult area to deal with, even for grown men. But he stayed enthusiastic the entire time. There were no ducks flying that morning anyway. For those of you out there that are duck hunters, it was a bluebird day. Clear skies, no clouds, no rain, nothing, no fog, no birds within sight. But I had the best hunting trip that I had had to that point because that little boy entertained me the whole time. Yeah. So I would shoot off shotgun rounds at cattails and this, that, and the other. And he would face plant in the marsh, in the mud. He was having the time of his life. And to this day, he can still remember that.
Wow.
So what I thought was going to be this big sacrifice ended up being the biggest dividend payment of parenting up to that point. And that's what I've learned has happened with all these things that could be viewed as sacrifice as a dad. There's never been a loss.
Right. Where did we get this idea that sacrifice is synonymous with misery?
Right.
Because that's what you were dreading. This is going to be miserable.
Right.
That's my baby boy. I'm going to do it, but it's going to be a miserable day. And it turned out to be one of the most memorable days of y'all's relationship.
Yes.
Yeah. But we had this idea that no, sacrifice is a negative. It's not. It's not a negative.
Well, the challenge out there, friends, is if you're a young man or not, the opportunity to be a dad is the greatest, most fulfilling, most rewarding experience for a man in any form on this planet. And if you go at it with the understanding that you're going to get more out of it than you put into it,
yes,
then you can look for those moments.
Yes.
You can look for those amazing rewards that you get, those memories, those stories, like the one I just told. You will never lose.
No.
As a dad.
That's right. Priceless treasures.
If you put your heart into it, all you're doing is creating a legacy.
Yes.
Put your soul into these kids every chance you get. You won't regret it. So if any of you out there have any questions or comments or stories that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear them. We'd love to hear from dads or moms, daughters, sons, anybody out there that's got a story about their dad, about something that impacted them that was unexpected or expected, whatever it may be. But this is the spice of life.
It is.
It's the interest payments on the investments of parenting.
Right.
So we appreciate you out there joining us for these episodes of the What Are We Doing live podcast that we do. And we want to hear from you. We appreciate you allowing us to be a part of the pursuit of your purpose. And let us know how we're doing and let us know how we can serve you better.
Right. And for example, if you're a young dad, maybe you're expecting y'all's first child, and you probably have some men in your life, seek their counsel. And if you would like to hear from a couple of dads that, maybe didn't get it right the first time, but kind of figured out the way it could have gone better, we would love to share whatever with you. So there's different messaging boards for you to reach out to us, and we'll definitely respond. And hey, we'll learn how to do this thing better together.
So please like, follow, share, subscribe, and comment on all of our stuff or any of our stuff that you may see fit, and ask all the questions you like as well.
Yes.
Well, I'm Rob.
I'm Chuck.
Thank you guys for joining us today. Y'all have a great day. We'll see y'all next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Thank you very much.